What's up, internet? What is your worst fear? And what do you think might happen if it came true? Today, I want to talk to you about one of mine, one that has been escalating over the last few years and it has accelerated greatly in the last year. And it is the fact that I am losing my hair and that my hair is thinning at a rapid rate. And I know some of you watching this might actually think that your hair actually looks pretty decent, and I agree. Today is a good hair day out of the last 3 weeks where I didn't feel bad about it. I think it's very determinant on the lighting, the angle, as well as the haircut itself. And I will show you in a few moments that it's really evident and clear that my hair is really thinning, especially when you view it from the top. Anyway, I know this is hyper specific and probably a lot more relatable if you're going through the same thing. But I hope what I'm about to share with you in terms of my relationship with this fear of mine, my struggles, as well as how I have tried to overcome and confront it, might be helpful for you in terms of you dealing with your own fears. So this is something that has been increasingly tormenting me over the last years. And I have spent a lot of time and energy fretting and worrying about this, many sleepless nights and anxiety tearing my hair out. And in hindsight, that probably didn't help. To be honest, as shallow as it may sound, my number one fear about losing my hair is that I would lose my appeal to girls.
Never seen you looking so lovely as you did tonight.
And I was also worried about how I would look with my head shaved, because it is something that I deem to be an inevitable outcome and eventually will happen. And it also felt like it would be something that is permanent. So unlike something like, let's say, if I were to be overweight, I could always exercise more, eat healthier. If I had really terrible stamina, I could train myself to run more, to increase and better my stamina. This, on the other hand, was something that seemed kind of irreversible. So that in itself has also caused me a lot of grief and anxiety. I've spent quite a fair bit of time researching into this, and while there are medication that can help you to prevent and reduce the rate of hair loss, as well as techniques and technologies such as hair plugs, which everyone make fun of, as well as hair transplant, my running and overall conclusion is that there really isn't one effective method that really addresses this issue as of now. Because if there were, then I don't think we will see that many bald, rich people walking around. I think that's a pretty high signal that I use to gauge the overall state of the technology with hair loss. So this took a toll on my confidence over time, and I would find myself subconsciously creating and using certain strategies to avoid feeling bad in specific situations. And this is gonna sound trivial and maybe even superficial to some of you, but this is what I did and I'm gonna share it with you anyway. So for example, when I went on dates, I would avoid squatting down in front of them to tie my shoelaces or for whatever reason, so that they couldn't see the top of my scalp. And I also found myself being hyper conscious when I went swimming, as well as having an increasingly dislike for the rain, because water wets the hair and it really reveals the thin hair and the bald spots. I tried to look for apps that would simulate me looking bald and with a shaved head. There was actually a ton of them on the App Store, but you know what? None of them actually works. What they actually did was all this free malware-ridden app. They just gave my phone a bunch of internet-transmitted diseases and I actually had to burn the phone. And sometimes when a photo of me is taken at a wrong angle and it reveals like one of the thin spots, it would also instantly kill my mood. I didn't like feeling like that, and I still don't like feeling like that. So you know what? Fuck it. Let's do something about it. Okay, so my hair actually looks pretty decent from this angle, from the side, basically the angle that I can see myself in the mirror. But from the top or sometimes from the back, you can see that my hair is actually quite thin.
World premiere.
And I'm gonna show you here under the light. You can see this part in the middle. Definitely, you can see these spots. Well, since self-development is a lot about overcoming your own challenges and confronting your fears, I decided that I would shave my head right here on camera. So let's go. Okay, so apparently this is what I fear. What do you think? And how do I look? Can I pull this off? I think with enough confidence, you can pull off just about anything. To be completely honest, this is not the first time I'm shaving my head. I actually took the plunge last summer, and to my surprise, it actually was very well received by both girls and guys alike, and I received a lot of compliments, and it was also good knowing that I could actually look good with my head shaved. So during the year where I had my head shaved, I tried to take better care of my scalp. That means no more hair products, better shampoo, and after a year or so, I sort of got tired of it and I wanted to grow my hair back. So I grew my hair back late last summer. To my disappointment, when my hair grew back, the density just wasn't like before. So it's evident again that my hair is just thinning. I had the hopes that by taking better care of my scalp, that my hair density would increase. But that wasn't the case. And over the last few months, sort of this feeling of inadequacy has started creeping back again, and I started being hyper conscious of my hair again, a feeling which I really didn't like. Miraculously, when I had shaved my head last summer, I instantly had no problem with the rain anymore. I in fact even loved walking in the rain for the first time in, I don't know, a decade or something. And it really showed me that this was so much dependent on my experience of reality itself rather than the rain itself. I actually had no problem with the rain. The real problem I had with the rain was my hair getting wet. So the reason why I'm doing it again is that in a way, I am increasing the stakes for myself. Because last year, I very much did it privately. I never really explained the full reasoning to anyone. For me, there was a lot of, I would say, a bit of shame attached to this issue, and of course guilt and insecurity. And this time around, since I had my hair grown back again, and these insecurities came back, I wanted to do this as a way to increase the stakes for myself. So rather than doing it in private, I'm now doing it via video, sharing with a bunch of people. And you know, in some ways, I hope that this helps me to confront my fear of this issue in a more deep and meaningful way. That even though I am not quite ready to accept the bigger lesson, which is simply to accept the situation for what it is, and it doesn't matter if I had this haircut or a good haircut or a bad haircut, I'm just able to be completely confident in the way I look with my hair. I also realized that it's not a one-step process, right? So let's say there's 5 stages of grief process. You kind of go through denial, anger, things like that before you finally come to acceptance. At least I had this impression that I had to accept it immediately because also of my interest and reading and studies into philosophies such as Stoicism and Buddhism. I've also come to realize that it's okay not to make that step immediately. And in the meantime, there are things that I can do proactively to help me confront and overcome this fear, such as doing something like this. Hello again, Internet. I take 3 lessons with me from this experience. Lesson number 1 is our fears don't have to define us, who we are, as well as our way of living. There's a saying that goes, fear really stands for false evidence appearing real. And I think that is extremely true. Because if you think about it, our anticipation of something happening is actually a lot of times far worse and far longer than the actual event happening itself. And in many cases, the fear never actually even comes true. It's just something that we project into the future and we are afraid of, but it never actually happens. And that means that we end up suffering more than necessary. And in some cases, if the fear never actually transpire, then you would have spent a lot of time and energy just exhausting yourself in that process. So I think the key is that fears should be very much viewed as a part of us, but we should take steps to make sure that they don't overwhelm us. Lesson number 2, when you own your flaws, you become more attractive. And we see comedians doing this quite well, although not always in the healthiest sense. They tend to employ a lot of self-deprecating humor where they make fun of themselves, of their own insecurities, so that we can laugh at them or laugh with them. And nobody likes someone who takes himself too seriously. And the ability to laugh at yourself is also a signal not only to yourself but to others is that you don't really care about what other people think. And paradoxically, this is an extremely attractive quality in of itself, because I think deep down we want to transcend these insecurities and these limitations, and to a certain extent we all crave other people's approval. I believe that's a key reason as to why Mark Manson's book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, is so popular, because deep down we would like to be that person who just give less shit about what other people think, at least all the nonsensical stuff. Lesson number 3, Fears reveal to us where we are not yet free. So we are not yet free in the sense that we are being enslaved or being trapped by them to a certain extent. So in my case, I am still dependent on other people's approval. I have not fully transcended that part. And of course, I'm dependent on my own approval for my own appearance and my own sort of state of mind. I think the biggest lesson for me out of this experience is that it really revealed to me losing control is not something that I'm comfortable with yet. It's still very unnerving. So in a situation like this where I really cannot do much to meaningfully improve the situation, it's very disturbing to me. But that's it. I think there are creative ways that you can use to experience your fear on a smaller dose. So it doesn't have to be an all or nothing mindset. So for example, if you're afraid of becoming poor, you could try living on $1 or $2 a day for a week and try to see what it's like to be experiencing that. And death is a common one. I've actually explored a little bit around this topic. In Korea, they actually have an event where you basically kind of simulate your own death. As part of the event, you even go into a wooden coffin and lie in there for like 30 minutes, which sounds kind of morbid, but I think it is a pretty interesting way of trying to confront this issue. Let's say you're afraid of heights. You could try on VR. There are some VR games that simulates that you're walking on a plank. I've tried it. It's actually pretty surreal. In summary, I would like to leave you with one final idea, and it is that our fears actually need us more than we need them. For most of us, I think it's fair to say that without our fears, our lives will be infinitely better. Our fears, on the other hand, would cease to exist without us. And I actually think that's a pretty empowering way to look at it. As the saying goes, what you resist persists. Whenever you try to fight something and the harder you try to fight against it, often the bigger of a deal it becomes. Ultimately, you want to get to a point of acceptance, and acceptance is not about giving up. It is simply accepting the situation and moving on meaningfully from there. So I hope you can use what I've shared with you in this video as a starting point to think about how you might confront your fears in a more meaningful manner. As always, I'm happy to hear from you. If you have enjoyed this video, hit the like button, and if you're new here, hit the subscribe button. And for now, I am just excited to enjoy the rain once again. And also I'm happy that I can use this emoji once again. Until the next video, I'll see you out there on the internet.